All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to show you probably the most popular swap on the planet. That would be pairing your LS with your Dodge 8HP or your BMW 8HP. Show all the goodness. Dodge it's cheap. It's the accessible one. It's the 8HP70, so it holds plenty of power for basically everyone. If you're supercharged, turbo, NA, doesn't really matter.
Plus the 90 as well. So basically, if you're in Europe, you hear about the 8HP70. It's usually a BMW transmission from a diesel. If you're in the US, these are exceedingly rare and very expensive. If you buy the Dodge 8HP70, you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck, and you can always upgrade to the 90 later. And fun fact, all of these transmissions are used, and about 1/3 the cost of any sort of build transmission from anybody. Your Bob's your uncle building transmissions for $15,000. I am so sick of people spending $15,000 building your transmission. Just go spend $4 grand on a Dodge 8HP90 if you think you're gonna change the rotation of the earth.
Tell us how you really feel about it, Mike. He is
the rotation.
passionate.
This junkyard one though, someone put in some time spray painting that one. That's not always how they come from the junkyard, but it's good enough.
That's how you know it came from
a sweet junkyard.
Local Detroit. So essentially this is the most popular adapter plate we have. It's from Adamap. We sell it on our website. It's gonna basically make it really easy to adapt the Dodge bell housing from the transmission onto the LS block. It makes life really simple, and also there's no like flex plate. This flywheel replaces it. It's billet aluminum with a steel starter gear, and what this does is remove all the chances of stacking tolerances. When you start stacking adapters, you stack tolerances, and this makes it all much easier, much more conventional, like a normal flywheel for a manual transmission. And then also how we're going to control it, of course, is a super nice max ECU harness and max ECU. So what the max ECU does is control not only the engine, but also the transmission. And this makes life easy, so all your tuning is in one place. And the reason we do this is because when you're tuning cuts and blips, you literally have to tune on both sides of the transmission controller and the engine controller, but when you can do them all in one place,
it makes life much easier.
You're going to make your life a lot easier.
Your tuner will be happy.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get started with the transmission, and the first step is to dry fit the adapter plate onto the transmission. That way you can tell where to notch it. We're gonna make a small notch in the transmission to clear the starter, because the nose is so long, and we wanna avoid making an adapter plate that's like 3 inches thick. So what we do is we notch the transmission housing to clear this thing. If your starter doesn't have this, like some don't, like a Tilton and stuff like that, you don't need to do this. In
most starters,
cases,
you're gonna do this.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll get all this stuff sorted out and show you where to cut it. So this is how you're gonna mark your transmission for starter clearance. What the hell is that noise? My God.
It's the aliens, guys.
All right, so what you're gonna do to do this is just get your adapter kind of lined up. That's lined up enough for us to tell. You can see the starter goes right here. The starter goes kind of like that, or goes like this, sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, they get.
So that would run into that. So obviously, we're gonna wanna go ahead and make a little notch here. Just give yourself some rough marks there, and we'll take the angle grinder and we'll just cut it out real quick. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's get your safety squints out, cover your input shaft. Remember, always protect your shaft, always protect your squints. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut some stuff. You know, it's easy to cut more, you know, so start with a little bit.
You can always cut more, start with a little.
It doesn't require that much, honestly. I'm probably overdoing it. All right, so we got our 2 slots going in. Now I'm just gonna hit it from the backside and pop through. This will probably bonk right out now. Fantastic.
Wow.
So I got a flap disc and clean it up a little. Oh, actually no.
I'm gonna use
It's got a fancy tool. All right, well that literally took 10 minutes. I think that looks good. So it shows it's not that big a deal. You do have to cut your transmission a little bit, but honestly,
Yeah, you paid $700 for it.
yeah, the reason is to get a Dodge transmission. So now we're just gonna clean this up a little bit, and then we can witness our greatness. That's gonna be plenty of clearance.
Yeah, it's
It's gonna have like 9 miles, but it's gonna be good. And you can keep this to put on your Christmas tree. Wow, that's hot.
All right, do we want to line this back up and make sure it's good?
Oh, it's definitely good. I can tell with my eyes. All right, so next thing, let's go ahead and throw the flywheel on the engine. All right, so we have our sweet billet flywheel here. And I say flywheel because it's, I guess, traditionally an automatic transmission would use the thing called a flex plate, which attaches the torque converter to the crank. But oftentimes flex plates fail because they're thin sheet aluminum. Now this is a nice billet unit. It's not gonna fail like that. It's totally awesome. We actually have on one of our cars this running that has one of the top 20 drag week miles of all time. So you know this kit is proven. It's still running. So we're gonna throw it back in that new red car and put some more miles on it. But yeah, so we're gonna torque these down to 74 foot-pounds. Yeah.
A little bit of Loctite.
A little bit of Loctite. Loctite, 74 foot-pounds. So flywheel is on. Look at that, beautiful. So the next thing we're gonna do is attach the adapter plate. So the first thing we're gonna do is remove these 4 screws, which is gonna remove these plates, which will expose 2 holes that are hidden. Now this is gonna attach the block spots that are kind of like impossible to get to, which have overlap. So this cool little hidden plate feature lets you use the bolts that otherwise would be impossible to use. So now you can see the exposed holes, and we're gonna use the short shoulder head bolts on those locations. So you see these little short shoulders? We're gonna use those in these locations so they can be hidden. Some blocks don't actually have this one. And all the rest are gonna get the normal socket head screws. Now because we're using a dry sump, we're not actually going to use any of the bottom bolts, obviously. Torque your adapter plate to engine bolts to 64 foot-pounds. These short shoulder bolts torque a bit less because they're not as strong. You can torque these to 35 foot-pounds, it'll be fine. So I go ahead and put these little hidden plates back on. Sometimes people call me and they get all angry, like, these had a machining defect and you guys put some plates on it to fix it. And I tell them there's a bolt underneath it and they're like, fine. Yeah, this is ready to connect the transmission. Look how good that looks. We effectively adapted the Dodge pattern to the LS bell housing. Pretty fantastic looking. You'll notice in your kit, this ring is here. Now this ring is to adapt to both sides of the converter nubs. The converter has 2 different nubs. I'm pouring shit everywhere. So this, because this converter has the smaller nose, see this? It can fit over it. So we're gonna use this. So the first step is to clean up my mess and then push this ring into the flywheel. You're gonna want the chamfer facing out. Instead of hitting directly on the metal, I like to get a piece of wood. We'll go ahead and just smack it in there. Boom, good to go.
Easy money.
So that basically adapts it to the 2 sizes of Dodge converter. They changed in about 2018, so the newer ones are bigger and the older ones are smaller, if I'm recollecting correctly. Recollecting?
Recalling, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, something like that. Putting the converter in, by the way, guys, it's kind of a pain. So take your time, make sure it seats all the way into the transmission. A lot of times people call and they're like, the converter's touching off too early. Like the transmission can't touch the engine when I cinch it together. The converter's in between the 2. But a lot of times when that's happening, it's because the converter isn't sat fully onto the splines. And because it has more layers of splines than usual because it does have 8 speeds.
All right, we're good.
Lucky first guess, eh? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
basically,
That was good.
yeah.
So we probably want to lift this one up. We probably want to lift this up a little bit because the transmission is much higher than the engine right now. Docking. This is like the space shuttle, like the Hubble freaking telescope docking with freaking SpaceX up in this joint. Oh wow, look at that. 8 HP connected to a LS. Dodge and GM combined to create perfection. Now all I need is a 488 to create the ultimate American BMW.
It is actually kind of funny because it is
I feel like
General Motors, then Dodge, and then Ford at the back.
Ford, Chevy, Dodge CDF. All we need is AMC parts.
I feel like a Pokemon needs to come out of somewhere right now after that show we just watched.
Looks good, look at that. All right, we just put the torque converter bolts in. Forgot to film it, don't even worry about it. But as you can see, Dodge, Chevy, Dodge, Chevy, Adamat, Dodge, Chevy. So if you want the best adapter kit, it's all really simple, it's all really easy to do.
This is just the #1 swap, I would say, on the planet. Basically,
this
if
is
you
a
own an
long-
LS and you don't put a manual in the car, you're putting an AHP in the car. Every other transmission is now irrelevant.
Yeah, so little
Which is
things-
why you're here.
Little things to take in mind too is like we have a park lock adapter so you can control the park lever. We have cooling adapters so you can plug right into these cooling ports. We have rear mounts to make your transmission crossmember assembly easier. So no matter what the application, we have the parts on our website to make your swap easy as possible. Check it out, it's in the garage.